Hi, welcome to RCR Horsemanship. I'm Corey Furlong, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to teach your horse how to lay down on cue. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the different methods of teaching a horse to lay down and why I do it the way that I do it. So a lot of people will use ropes to teach their horse to lay down by picking up a foot and bringing them to the ground with a rope. I choose not to do that for a few different reasons. So the first thing is it's not really good for their mental state and it could cause injury. So depending on how you do it, you could be throwing your horse down to the ground and putting them in a state called tonic immobility. Tonic immobility is basically playing dead. So when a prey animal gets brought to the ground, they will freeze and lay down and hope that that predator lets them go so that they can get up and run away. It's kind of like playing possum. It's the highest stress state that a horse can be put in, and it's not good for their mental state. It's a really great way to get a horse to shut down, which is why pulling a horse to the ground historically was used to break them. I don't think that this is an appropriate method to use for horses because I want my horse to continue to be willing and enjoy being with me, not be scared. So the other thing is it is possible to teach a horse to lay down with ropes without causing them to be in tonic immobility. But what can happen is you could risk injury when you're stretching the horse in an unnatural position. But you could also cause issues with your farrier in particular. I have had to help fix horses that were taught to lay down with this method and help them get better with the farrier because they would just lay down when the farrier would pick up their foot. I don't think that that's a great idea. I like to keep my farriers and my vets happy. That is a huge thing in my program that I really want to make sure my horses are good for the vet and the farrier. So I like to make sure that I don't pick up a foot for the bow or the lay down. The next thing is that I get asked a lot, well, can a horse at any age learn how to do this? And I'll tentatively say yes, a horse of any age can learn how to lay down. But there's a few key pieces of wanting to lay down. One is their physical ability. Sometimes as horses get older, it's harder for them to get up and down. So if you notice that your horse doesn't lay down very much in the paddock or it's a little bit tough for them to get up and down, this may not be the best trick for them. It might be hard for them to learn. Also, as horses age, they get a little bit stuck in their ways just like we do. So a younger horse might learn this a little faster, but don't give up on your older horse. Very possible that your older horse can learn how to do this. The next thing that I like to think about before I teach my horse to lay down is what mental state are they in? I don't want to work with a horse on this that is a little bit shut down, that's not creative, and especially one that's a little fearful. That's not going to be That's not going to be helpful for this horse. Teaching them a trick that doesn't put them in a vulnerable position. Something like smile or target training can be a really good thing to get them out of their shell, get them creative before we start asking for bigger things. So if your horse feels ready to learn this, let's get started and I'll show you how we do it. All right, to get started, I'm gonna need a dressage whip, a halter, and if you use treats for training, have a thing of treats. It's really great to use positive reinforcement for this. My suggestion with positive reinforcement though is only use it if you've established your bridge cue. Otherwise, don't worry about it. You can do this without positive reinforcement. If you see me feed Brody a cookie, then just replace that with a release of pressure. When I'm using a dressage whip, I always want to make sure that I'm holding it like a wand. So this is something I learned from Ben Atkinson, is if you hold it like a wand, you're going to make magic. We don't want to hold it like a hammer because we're going to break something. So holding it like a wand is going to make sure that we're not using too much pressure. We're not going to hurt our horse with it. So I'm going to hold it like a wand. And what I want to do is make sure that my horse is good with me touching him with the whip. I don't want this to be scary to him. And before I do anything with the whip, I need to make sure that my horse can drop his head when I put pressure on the halter. Very good boy. So pressure straight down and he should drop his head. Make sure you guys can see that good. Me and Brody have been practicing this quite a bit. Good there, dropping his head. Good. Now what I want to do is make my cue with the whip. I want that to make him drop his head. So I like to tap the horse basically between where the front and the rear cinch would go, because then I can cue this under saddle really easily and nothing else touches them there very often. So it's a really great way to make sure that our cue is very defined and he's not going to mistake it for anything else. So I'm going to grab my horse, grab the halter with just fingertips, shouldn't have to hold a lot of pressure. I'm going to tap under the belly, and then if he doesn't do anything, which he won't at first, I'm going to pull the head down, release both at the same time. And we're going to do that a few times until I feel like my horse is starting to think that when I tap, that he's going to drop his head. So tap, 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 pull the head down. Very good. Release both. Once I've done that a few times, I'm going to start by tapping, and then I'm going to grab the lead rope. So I'm not touching my lead rope right now. I'm going to tap, tap, tap. If his head doesn't go down, I'll pull, release both at the same time. And we're going to stay at this step until when I tap him, his head drops right away. Let's see if he remembers. We have worked on this a couple times. Tap, tap, tap. Very good boy. Very good. In the beginning stages, I would probably offer a treat, or if you're not using treats, just a good little pet and a release is great. Good boy. We'll do that again. Tap, tap, tap. Good. The head drops. Very nice. And I'm really careful to release right when that head drops. Do it again. See if you guys can watch my whip when I release. Tap, tap, tap. Good. Release when that head drops. What I want him to start thinking is when I tap him, I want him to start thinking, how do I get lower? So I need to make sure that this cue is so good. Good boy. I want to make sure that this cue is so refined that when I go to tap more and more, he just starts thinking, how do I get lower? How do I get lower? Go ahead. Good. Very nice. Yes. And now that he was sniffing the ground, that's a really great step towards the lay down. So the next step I think is somewhat optional. It does work better for some horses, and it's been working really well for Brody, so I wanted to make sure that I mention it. A lot of people will call this shaping the behavior, because the first thing that the horse does when they go to lay down is drop their head, and then the next thing they do might be pawing, and then they bring their hind legs forward. So what I'll do is I'll teach my horse to pick up a hind foot with just a tap of a whip. Good boy. So that I can start to ask those hind legs to come forward. I don't do this with every horse. A lot of horses will learn just by dropping their head down that we're looking for the lay down. But Brody has struggled a little bit with his creativity, so I'm helping him along a little bit more by shaping the behavior, and I'll ask for his head down first, and then for his hind legs to step forward. Good boy, yes. Good. All right, so the next step is a little bit different for every trainer. So I'm going to show you how I do it, because I think that it's most important to get the horse to lay down. I don't care too much how they do it or where they do it. So I want to make sure before I move off of the rail, which by the way, I guess I didn't mention, I like to be on the rail so that my horse doesn't move away from me. So you can see I'm right up against the fence here. I don't want my horse to move away from me when I go to tap, because a lot of times horses will yield their rib cage at first, thinking maybe you're asking for a side pass. So before I come off the rail, I want to make sure that when I tap, the head goes down. And if I keep tapping, I'd like to see either a paw or those hind legs come forward, but just a little more effort. What's that next thing? Good, pawing. Very nice. So I want to see that, and then from there I'd like to see those hind legs coming forward. If I don't see that yet, I'm not coming off the rail quite yet. I want to see them trying that next step. So the way to build on this is just to continue our cue and release when we get something that we like. Good boy. Very nice. Good. If my horse feels like he's getting a little bit worked up about this, I'm going to take him for a little walk as a bigger release after we get something good to kind of reset his brain and make sure that he's not too worried about what we're doing. Those release points are hugely important for horses, especially if we want them to do something that should be relaxing like a lay down. So we're going to see if we can get head down, little bit of a paw, good, and then maybe we can get our hind legs to come forward. Come on, good, come on. There, very nice, good boy. Once I have those steps, I'm gonna take them off the rail sooner rather than later. I don't think I want a horse to lay down right next to a rail. If you've ever seen a horse roll and get cast, you don't want to do that. You don't want to encourage it. I'm only using the rail to make sure that they don't move away from my cue. Once they understand the cue, I'm going to take them off the rail and I'm going to allow them to circle like they usually would. I'm going to let them paw in the dirt and hopefully I can encourage a lay down. So I'll show you what that might look like. So I'll bring him into a spot that has nice soft sand where he can circle around a little bit. And I'm gonna cue, and then I'm gonna try to get out of his way. If he wants to walk around, that's totally fine with me. Good boy. Good boy, there we go, nice. Notice how I keep my energy really low. I'm gonna kind of bend down a little bit with him. Try to get the idea of him mirroring my body language. Yes. Very good. I want him to know that I'm not going to pounce on him. He can trust me if he's laying down. Now, Brody's been a pretty nervous horse to work with. I think he's had some bad experiences in his past with people. Good. So this has been a bit of a tougher thing, but he's doing a really great job. I've done a lot of work with him, just building up his trust and his creativity, doing a lot of positive reinforcement, and it's gotten him really far. Good. So notice how if he kind of quits, I'm just gonna go back to cueing. I'm not gonna worry about stopping the forward motion, just worrying about that cue. Good. Yes, good boy. And I like to interrupt that. Every once in a while when I get a good idea out of him, I'll interrupt it with a treat. Good boy, you're doing great. Good job, bud. Let's try again. So a lot of trainers will refine this a lot more on the rail because they don't want their horse to spin circles when they go to ask them to lay down, especially if you're doing liberty competition, you want your horse to just drop right down. But I find that it's easier to refine that later and get the lay down first. So letting them do it in a way that they like works a little bit better and giving them some space rather than pushing them to do it right perfectly in a line on the rail. The other mistake I see people make is they will rush up to their horse the first time they get the lay down, and that could be really scary. We don't want to create a negative association with the lay down. So instead what I'll do, if he lays down, I will go ahead and just sit on the ground, keep my distance, and make sure that he feels comfortable and confident. If I have a bridge cue, I can give the bridge cue when he lays down, but I won't actually go to feed him the treat until he stands back up. In the beginning stages, I find it really important to build their trust that I don't just rush up to them. Good boy. Good. Yes. Now that I've shown you what it looks like with a horse that has not yet been trained, I'm going to show you with a horse that's a little bit further along. So I'm going to go back through each of the steps, make sure that he's listening, and then show you what it'll look like the first time you get your horse to lay down. So remember, the first step is when I tap that the head should go down. Good, easy. He really likes this trick. So first step is that the head goes down. The second and third step are that they paw and their hind legs come forward. So see how he does. Pause. I'll keep tapping. Hind legs, good. Good boy. And pause. From there, we then take him off the rail, just like we did with Brody. And when he goes down, I'm gonna mark the moment that he goes down with my bridge cue and feed a treat. If you're not training with treats, then we're just going to stay nice and calm. We're gonna remove any pressure. We might set our whip down and just wait for them to lay down, to roll, do whatever they need, and then get back up and then reward. So I'll get him out on a circle. Cue. I'm gonna stay out of his way, keeping my energy low. Good boy. Good. And as he goes down, I'm gonna set my whip down and just sit. I'm gonna try to make sure that the rope stays out of his way, that he gets to roll. Yes, good boy. Let him get up and then come feed him some cookies. Good job, bud. Very nice. Good boy. Now that I've gotten him to lay down a few times and stayed away from him, let him have his time to roll, let him relax, I'm now going to try to go up to him and feed him treats while he's laying down to kind of break that touch barrier when he's actually down. So we're gonna do the same thing. Ask for the lay down. Good. I don't mind if he circles for now. Good. I'm still gonna do the same thing where I'm going to kneel down. Yes, but now I'm gonna try to come right by his head. Now I want you to be very aware of where those front feet might pop up. I don't want to get myself in trouble and get hurt if he were to pop up real fast. But I'm just gonna try to give him a constant stream of treats. Let him know that staying down is really good. I'm not gonna try to lay over him. I'm not gonna try to pet him. I just want him to have treats. And then I want him to get up when I ask him to. So I'm not going to push it too much. And I'm gonna say, okay. And ask him to come up. Good boy. At this stage, I'm not going to feed him treats once he gets up. I'm gonna feed him treats while he's down, and once he's up, then we're just gonna be done, and we'll call that a day. I hope that helps you guys teach your horse how to lay down. Those are just the first few steps on getting the lay down, but in the next video, we will teach you how to refine it so that the horse doesn't circle as much, they lay down a little bit quicker, they stay down, and even can lay flat on their side. So stay tuned for that one, but until then, thanks for watching.